Okay, this is our second Turkish presentation given by Fulya, so please, the floor is yours.
Okay.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you for welcoming me here among this community. Honestly, I have to say, I've nowhere ever in my life felt as much as home as I feel among metal scholars. It was always an identity question. After my presentation, you're going to understand why. So I would like to just first express my gratitude in advance. So first of all, I wish I had the ego to say, like Louis XIV, that recharge c'est moi. Sorry for my French as well. Well, it's going to have to be the case for this presentation. I hope you would also forgive me for that. So my background is actually a regular middle class traditional Turkish family. By tradition, please do not understand sort of a religious traditional outlook. We are a very secular family, like most city-dwelling Turks actually. And I grew up still listening to Turkish radio, Turkish television, and well, on Turkish television you would have as a sort of exotic influence only on Sundays a program on Western art music and nothing else. Absolutely no pop music or something. We didn't have MTV. I got acquainted with MTV in the 90s with satellite broadcasts, so quite late for most compared to most of you. Then, of course, that's the rebellious teens, the late 90s. For me, was a discovery age. And I was delving into both Western art music and metal. The thing is, I'm sorry to admit it now, but Beethoven was more attractive to me than Metallica, honestly. So, despite family resistance, they were having their concerns. How are you on earth going to earn money? How are you going to raise a family of your own? How will you get social acceptance, cultural capital, whatever you would need in life if you turn to be a professional musician? Despite them, I got a scholarship from one of the only, then it was the only university that had a music faculty. So I got a scholarship and I got a rather solid education now that I can compare to world standards on basically Western music. I wasn't a musicologist then. I was trained to become a composer, and I did a piano minor. I studied music theory. There's no way around it. I wanted to be a conductor, but they said you're a girl. Well, sorry for that. And then, at the very last year of that university study, which took 6 years of my life, without the scholarship, I think nobody would pay for me studying music for 6 years. Anyways, I rediscovered metal, and it was Rammstein. I think their album Mutter was out, and I was like, oh goodness, what kind of music is this? It was really very, very acute, very, very like on my skin, giving me the goosebumps still. And well, then following that, I got another scholarship to study in the Netherlands. That's how I was able to pick up some Dutch. I was talking to the DA. I stayed in Europe for some years, and meanwhile I had the chance to witness up close this ascending and almost supremacy for a while of female-fronted metal. It was really interesting, but especially being in the Netherlands, you see a lot of epica, you see shows. Not that I went to a live performance, I was just too timid still and rather connected to the classical music domain. So I admit I didn't go to a live performance, but I did see Rammstein live at Rock am Ring. Then the real conversion had to wait when I decided, okay, why shouldn't I sort of take it as a hobby? Why shouldn't I be part of a band? We were very, very amateurish. I trained like musicologist. I had a musicology degree by then, by the way. So I trained musicologists playing with like a bunch of younger guys who have no idea about tuning with like horrible equipment. I had a 20-year-old Yamaha keyboard, which probably sounded awful. And then from that, I found some sort of really interesting emotional stimulation that I wouldn't get through, I was also a part of an a cappella choir and we were singing Renaissance repertoire, all the serious musicological stuff. But I wasn't getting the kick from that somehow. I started off as just a hobbyist, trying my hand, and then it turned into a serious project with like older people, with like more, ambition into. It was the golden era of female-fronted metal, so we thought we would have a chance, whatever. So then I was just barely beginning my PhD. This is the year 2011, and well, I gave all my lessons, and when it came to giving my research proposal in 2013, that was Ilgun before me, so I thought maybe I would have a chance for the university to approve another thesis on metal, and they did. So that's basically the turning point for me. Otherwise, I would have studied just like many important scholars like Ralph Locke or many others before me. I would have studied musical exoticism, how to create this Turkish idiom in Western art music. Maybe it's lucky that I turned out to be here instead. So when things turned seriously, I learned about that there is a new method for research, what they usually refer to today as practice-led research. So in order to do that, of course, the band proved to be a wonderful environment. Fabulous, you can just relate your experiences to your phone every evening if you're too lazy to take field notes, which is not very possible, and in the context of rehearsing, in the context of gigging. So Istanbul was a very, very, very lively scene back then. This is just before the Gezi events, actually. I think some of our open-air festivals would make you blue with envy, but well, alas, we don't have them anymore. Unfortunately, I can tell the reasons for people who are interested later. So then it was a very, very live scene, and I was like really doing research plus enjoying life as a budding band. We had another vocalist back then, actually. I don't really like to sing still, but we tried with like 6 other ladies. It didn't turn out well. It was female fronted, but nobody thought much about this course. We were interested in playing covers of Epica, Nightwish, Camelot, such stuff. And well, of course, being a newcomer comes with some issues, especially when cover playing was not enough and we had to turn to composition. First, who is going to do the task? Who is going to go through all that effort in writing down a song, which was seemingly easier, but the closest you could come to a middle ground with a trained musician who works with sheet music and an autodidact guitarist who thinks this way is down because his fretboard, like, you understand me, so we couldn't even communicate. And that was a very, very difficult issue because he would say, okay, but you know nothing about Iron Maiden, so that doesn't make you 100% metalhead, and so you can't just tell me this is not a good riff. And I'm saying, but it's harmonically wrong. So this sort of conflict really, really, really pulls you down. And of course, my dear autodidact guitar or bass players are very fond of a software called Guitar Pro. And I just hated it. It's a horrible way of rendering a staff notation. And I was always saying, oh, this key signature is just so bothering me. So that sort of adaptation really takes its time and takes its toll. And we really have the supremacy power tug. And then, of course, when it turned out that every other lady walked away and I was sort of kicked to the front, okay, you go ahead, you can sing. More or less. So when they said this, the issue was, okay, but I would need to first convince myself, do I want to be in front of the stage? Can I represent you guys? Represent? What's representation? They never considered that we needed to form and project an identity. It was just for the fun of sort of playing together and having fun together, like having beer together, going to holidays, swimming, whatever. So when it was the issue to construct such an identity, then I was at a loss how to approach it, where to hold it from. And what the genre really forces you, if you want to do Epica-esque or Nightwish-esque sort of stuff, it forces you to use an opera voice and wear a corset. At least back then it was so. And yeah, that was just so not me. So I said, okay, why don't we play other stuff? Look, I discovered some guys called Dream Theater. It's awesome. We should play their music instead. And of course, this autodidact guitarist I was talking about, he was mad about Symphony X. But he never considered we could play them. They're, as you know, technically very, very difficult stuff. So we can't even communicate among each other. How can we ever play, or how can we ever make music in their standards? That was an issue. Well, we tried. We tried with a bit of Turkish flair. It's agony, I'm not exaggerating the word, and you're going to confirm, I hope, when you hear the tracks, that my feeling of inferiority was very, very, very strong. The first two versions, the 2012 versions, that I'm going to give snippets from, actually were recorded with different vocalists. We first thought about trying an Epica-esque lady, and now we tried a very not exactly Iron Maiden, but I don't know, Jethro Tull, maybe like a hard rock voice lady. We weren't satisfied, both versions were not released. Actually, that's the title of my talk. The song is called Hasret, which translates to longing in my language. So let's just get a teaser sound. This is the first version. And this cost something like €1,000 to record. Sorry, I didn't know any other way. This was definitely unreleasable. It's a mess, it doesn't sound, and I didn't know back then that in a professional studio you have to, okay, do the recording, great, channel recording, we're so professional, but of course you would need a mixing, you would need mastering, and I had no clue about that. Then, okay, I got some help. There were some friends who said, okay, come to our studio, I will help you out, but find another vocalist for God's sake. This is the version. We revised the song somewhat because the vocal line was just like too garrulous. Let's hear this version. Now, why aren't you playing? I'm sorry, this is not responding, so we work it this way. Instrumental version. I would have the vocal version for those who are interested. Sounds somewhat better, but still far from something that you could release, right? So this one finally, with me in the vocals, got released, and in a minute you're going to see the reaction. satisfactory, I know, but we released it anyway. These are the words, actually. They are written from the perspective of a woman. Not necessarily me telling about an inescapable longing and inescapable sense of desire and unfulfilled desire. This was actually inspired by women who have to send their fiancés, their lovers to the military service, sometimes not even being able to telecontact them in any way. So I was just sort of making a woman's statement with rather aggressive musical style. And this is, I'm sorry, I'll come back to this slide. This is the reaction. So the left-hand column is from abroad. It was actually found very interesting, this track. The fall feel of the song is more progressive and it's criminally short. I wish there was more. And now the right-hand column. Oh, the Turkish audience hated it. The lyrics are awful, the vocalist does not fit, it's noisy, does not give me musical pleasure. Why are they forcing this, working with female vocalists, this idea? And in order to just like play down the female card, this was just the representation, plain black, Jane Doe's, John Doe's, nothing in terms of exaggeration, only the visual. The visual is something like a fantasy Istanbul. The name actually recalls Istanbul, and that's basically it. And I insisted on the lady's hand. That's it from her perspective. Her perspective. Was that very offending? I do not know. And the simplicity of the lyrics is actually inspired by like roots metal, the idea of roots metal. This is a genuine Turkish folk song that I'm going to get you to hear now. It's like two versions. There's a Greek version and the Turkish version. I'm putting down the lyrics in a minute. Perspective. She's sitting, imagine in your mind an old Istanbul, pre-industrial 19th century Istanbul. She's sitting at her window. She can't be an outgoing woman at that time, and she's fancying the fruit seller guy, the fruit vendor on the street. She's just finding him nice looking, but she knows from gossip that he's engaged. But she sort of likes his mustache. The song is really almost vulgar. I mean, it's full of lust. Don't make me cry for your life sort of thing. So that's where I wanted to draw inspiration from. I know the lyrics are not strong, they're not making a cause. But for a very long while, women in my country didn't have causes, didn't have the right to voice any opinions. So all they could do was to admire from afar the life. Okay, just a little last version of my rendering of the song, and then I can go this. This is just rehearsal, it's not recorded properly. These are my guys, I'm very proud of them. liked my presentation, and thanks for putting up with my
Thank you. Great. Questions, comments? Gabriella?
First of all, thanks for the amazing presentation, and you just let us enter to a world that probably we wouldn't know and couldn't really imagine. And it was really amazing to share this with us from a personal perspective and personal journey.
Thank you. Thank you for the nice comment.
Thank you so much. I already got a kind of a feel about the Turkish scene in metal because I saw your presentation last week in ISM, so it's very nice to have this continuity and see the story evolve as it is. But maybe to add a little bit to that evolution, you mentioned the term female-fronted metal, and from within the scene, for example, with an interview with Floor Jansen recently in a Dutch magazine, she asked, when are we going to drop the label of female-fronted metal, as if the gender has to do anything with the quality of the music. And I wonder if in your thesis you might address that a little bit, how female-fronted metal still serves a lot like a marker of quality. I remember Rosemary Lucy Hill last week talking, when are we going to talk about male-backed bands instead of female-fronted metal, which I thought was a perfect way to put the thing on its head. So maybe I wanted to ask, how do you think about addressing that issue in your thesis?
Actually, thank you for the excellent question. My perspective is that it should be a meritocracy. I'm not a feminist. I'm not defending any supremacy of any gender according to the other. But I would like to just get rid of all the cliches by, in my thesis, my stance is totally ignoring the gender issue. In my 280 pages, I have written on gender maybe 3 pages, and that's only by maybe the derogation through the comments, through the feedbacks. There was a lot of attack for me being a woman, and that was my only merit according to them. They didn't even consider that I was composing the songs or arranging. Actually, there wasn't time, but I also had a final recording of the song Hasret in my own home studio. I had to learn production from scratch. I had to buy software. I had to learn MIDI composing and everything in 2-3 years with 2 day jobs. It was thankfully a little bit possible. So, but they don't even consider that I can do, as a woman, can do such things. So that's why that's sort of my protest, by ignoring the gender altogether. I think I'm sort of making a statement by being the opposite, being the anti of all this female-fronted business.
All right, thanks.
I wonder if that answers your question.
More comments, questions?
I'm a feminist and I'll keep on fighting for you.
We're sure you will. Yeah, thanks for the great insights and presentations.
And these are of course my people who backed me up. That's the band logo in the middle, and KB3T1 Audio is our pride and glory. It's a synthesizer company from Turkey. It's happening here.
We have one more before the closing panel, and so it's been a long way to the final presentations. I know it's always